Hello and welcome back to Mainly BnB Mastery. I'm Jeff Davis, and today we're going to actually be doing a follow-up on a previous episode regarding Maine's 2025 tourism crisis. And we have updates with real data and how things are going since we did that last episode back in late June of this year. So it's encouraging numbers. That's the good news, looking at what's happened over the past month and a half or so. And there are several different factors as to what have led to that, which we'll get into. At the time we did this, there was a lot of uncertainty, and there still is a lot of uncertainty for a lot of reasons in the tourism market in Maine and across the country. But at that time, we'd had the rainiest June on record. So already you were getting a lot less of that last minute vacation rental business. However, July has recovered really well, and we're going to cover three key areas when we're comparing July of this year to July of 2024. The sources of the data that we're going to give you are coming from platforms like Beyond Pricing, AirDNA, the Portland Press Herald, and different news outlets that are covering the trends and the numbers in Maine and in these local areas. We're going to get into the big picture first. Maine has weathered the storm of this tourism uncertainty in most of its vacation rental markets, thanks to the fact it's simply an amazing place to visit. There really aren't any other destinations in the eastern United States that has a comparable experience, thanks to Maine's coastline in close proximity to lakes, mountains, and wilderness. You don't get that further south. Even in New England, it's really the only place where you have all of that in the same close area. The other factor that has really helped is July was fantastic weather here in Maine, as it normally is, and a lot of people have cited that they were getting rid of the sweltering temperatures from where they live in other parts of the country to come to Maine in the summer. Acadia National Park had its most visitors in 35 years in July, but those numbers are expected to drop in the fall because there are 50% less cruise ships coming in this year than last year. Portland's also expecting about 45 to 50 less cruise ships this year. And so while cruise ships don't affect us as vacation rental hosts, it is very important to our friends running other businesses in the tourism industry, everything from restaurants to stores to anything that you would expect walk-in seasonal. The Portland Jetport is up 4% in July, year over year versus 2024. So that's good. People are flying in. The staggering Canadian tourism drops are still significant. 28% less Canadian tourists in July, year over year versus 2024. That's 108,000 less visitors in July alone from Canada. Certain markets like Old Orchard Beach that typically relies on 30 to 40% Canadian bookings every year, they're showing about a 25% decline year over year. But those are more isolated to the really Canadian heavy parts. The good news is most of the state is doing very well. Let's look at the local picture. And by local, those are the markets that we focus in our business in, which is Freeport and the coastal Maine market, and then Bethel and Sunday River up in the Western Mountains. The numbers have been steady in both of these markets this year. The data for the year to date, and we only look at properties that perform in the 95th percentile and above in performance, because our own properties, we perform at the 99th percentile and higher in all of our properties that we manage. So that's really all I'm trying to compare here. If you look at both Freeport and Bethel, they're up 4 to 5% in July versus the previous year. And the ADR, the average daily rates, are up about 3%. That's everyone managing, owning, operating vacation rentals in those markets. For comparable properties, we in our company, we actually more than doubled the revenues in July of the rest of the competition. And we had an average daily rate that was 33% higher than our competitors. How do we do that? We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. For our property specifically, we outperformed our July of 2024 in Freeport properties by 28%. That didn't happen by accident. We had to work really hard to do that this year. And really, because we saw what was a potential crisis coming, we put in a lot of work in advance to make sure that we were doing well. And not only did we survive, but we thrived. The average daily rates, the ADRs, were up 10%. Occupancy rate was up 13% to 86% average across our properties in Freeport in July. Now, what was interesting, though, is the booking lead time was down to about half of what it was in 2024. It went from 66 days down to 37 days on our particular properties. So that changed a lot of the strategy you have with your revenue management. And then in the Sunday River in the Western Mountains, that was down about 6% overall from the previous year. Occupancy rates were up for us. Average daily rates stayed the same, but some of that was more last minute bookings, which we were offering discounts for people to come in. The booking lead time on that was down 32%, so from 47 days to 32 days. But what's really down is the smaller condo market this summer. That's a significant drop from the year before. Our 3-bedroom chalet, for example, near the mountain, performed 5% better overall. Occupancy rates were 90%. That was up 19% from July of 2024. And the ADR, average day rate, was the same. The booking lead time was 45% closer, and that affects how you handle your pricing, your revenue management. So last but not least, you might be asking, what did you do to outperform your competitors in that market by such a sizable margin? So here's our secrets to success. Summarized is ultimately, you have to have the time, training and education, and the skills in the vacation rental space to be really good at revenue management, hospitality, and giving the guests special experiences. All of those things together are important to having success in general vacation rentals, but especially when you're having to compete for guests more than you do with other rental owners. Acting versus reacting, keeping an eye on the horizon, what is ahead, rather than just saying things aren't going well, what do we do? Let's drop our prices and stuff. As you know from watching this series, we were on top of this earlier in the summer, already planning for what we needed to do moving forward. And that's what you have to do. And that's what you should expect your vacation rental property management company to be doing as well. You cannot turn this into a race to the bottom from a pricing standpoint. We didn't drop our prices. We dropped our prices at specific times strategically, a certain period of time ahead, to make sure that we got guests in there. And that allowed us to actually do better than we did the year before. But what too many hosts and management companies do is they see availabilities and they say, we just got to keep dropping the prices, when really that's not the best for anyone in the market. The things that we did were not always different from what we've done traditionally. We just focused a little bit more. And some of the areas that were key to us getting more bookings during this time were leveraging the existing reservations that we had by offering special discounts for people to extend their stays, either at the front end or the back end of the reservation, depending on if there was any time, and really giving them a discount that's enticing if they want to do it. For example, if we had somebody that was arriving and there was one open day before they got there from the previous guests, and there was maybe 2 days on the back end, we would reach out to them and say, hey, we're offering a special discount if you have the flexibility to extend your stay. You got a day on the front end, 2 days on the back end. And then if they asked what it was, we proposed something that made sense based on the pricing at the time, whether it was a weekend or a weekday. Give them 30, 40, 50% off, something that's going to entice them, because the reality is you're probably not going to get somebody to book those times. And if you do, it's probably going to be last minute, and you're already going to have in your revenue management discounted prices anyway. You've got a different turnover and all those kind of things. So people love deals. People love getting something on sale. I didn't have a single person that we reached out to that wasn't thrilled that we were offering this to them, even if they weren't in a position in their schedule to take it. Constantly managing the dynamic pricing and the minimum stays on openings that we saw on the calendar in advance, and understanding that the booking lead time is less this year than it has been in previous years. So not getting too nervous when something wasn't booked maybe 3-4 weeks out, whereas in the past we would have said, something's wrong. Maybe we need to start shortening our minimum stays, dropping our prices. We held firm knowing the average booking lead time was going to be, and people were still traveling. They're just booking later. We've done a lot more with direct digital marketing and not relying solely on the platforms to do that for us, because you don't know what the algorithms on Airbnb or Vrbo are thinking about your property and where you're going to show up. That's outside your control. But what you can control is making sure that you or your property management company have your own direct booking website and you're driving traffic there. We do that for our properties that we own and the ones we manage for our clients. And it pays off because we're not getting charged the fees from the booking platforms as host. Our guests like it because they're paying a lot less on their end as well. So ultimately, those have been the secrets to our success in 2025. I hope that all of you who are watching and listening, if you're owning and managing at this point, that you have found ways to navigate this year. If you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be happy to assist. And if you're not in one of our markets, get you in touch with somebody that knows what they're doing. And if you're in our markets, we'd be happy to manage your property as well.
If you're ready to turn your Maine vacation home into a 5-star, high-performing asset to earn more and stress less, visit us at proactiveproperties.me. That's ME as in Maine. Or connect with us on social media at Mainly BnB Mastery. Don't wait. Reach out today. We'd love to help.